Welcome to the GCN Racing News Show. Coming up, we're going to take a look at the biggest rider transfers in the men's peloton for 2020 and how they could play out next season. We also take a look back at another weekend of top-level cyclocross and all the latest racing and transfer news. We shall start with cyclocross though, and it was yet another weekend of wins for Mathieu van der Poel. On Saturday, we had an urban cross for the latest round of the DVV Trophy, which took place in downtown Kortrijk. Now, being an urban course, it was very fast, and for half the race, there was nothing really to separate the top 10 or even 15 riders. Until the inevitable happened, that is. Van der Poel put in a big acceleration and nobody was able to stay with him. He'd go on to build up a significant advantage, eventually rolling across the line, having eased up 27 seconds in front of Belgian road race champion Tim Merlier. Now in many ways, that was even more of a show of dominance than all the others for Van der Poel, because on such a fast course, you had to be head and shoulders above everybody else to create any kind of gap. Now there was little to separate the others behind him, with Merlier sprinting home for second ahead of a group of 6. Now, when we caught up with former pro and Dutch Eurosport commentator Sanne van Passen pre-race, she predicted a very good course for Lucinda Brandt, and it certainly was. After a great start by Italian Eva Lechner, a strong 5-rider leading group formed, containing Brandt, Kaylin Del Carmen Alvarado, Anne-Marie Vorst, Yara Kastelein and world champion Sanne Cant. An issue late on for Sanne Cant, who struggled to get her foot in the pedal, also delayed the two 777 riders, Kastelein and Vorst, leading 2 in the lead. A great battle ensued, with the 2 Dutch riders swapping the lead back and forth, with Alvarado leading out the sprint on the bridge to the line. Brandt, though, is known for her power on the road, and she would eventually take the win. And she's certainly giving Sven Nys plenty to be satisfied with after changing into a new team. Vorst rounded out the podium, out-sprinting Cant and Kastelein, making it an all-Dutch podium, the first time that's ever happened in a women's DVV Trophy race. Van der Poel would also go on to win the following day at the Zilvermeer Cross, taking his 34th consecutive cyclocross win on a day that was also dominated by his team, Corendon Circus, who took all 3 of the podium places. In Mol on Sunday, Laura Verdonschot continued a solid season with victory ahead of junior sensations Shirin van Anrooy and Inge van der Heijden in. And so now it feels like quite a good time to reveal the results of last week's poll over on the GCN app. We asked you who the best rider of all time in cyclocross is, and somewhat predictably, Van der Poel came out on top. The app vote came in with 47% going to Van der Poel, and I say predictably because we had a feeling that the current King of Cross would get more of the votes than those that have dominated in previous generations. To be fair, even if he isn't currently statistically the best cyclocross rider of all time, he's certainly got more than enough time to surpass everybody else before the end of his career. Meanwhile, we also asked for Vecken who he thinks is the best cyclocross rider of all time, and this is what he had to say.
I think Mathieu, if he continues to do the same for the next 10 years, Mathieu is at this moment 24, I think. Yeah, 24. So he has at least 10 years to go. If he continues like that, yeah, he will for sure have the biggest career, most wins, most world titles, and everything you want. But it's still very early, so it's hard to compare them. I know that at the end of Sven's career, there was the big question, who is the best? I think it's hard to compare Erik de Vlaming, for instance, with Sven. Sven was in a period where everything was going live on television. Also, social media came up, a lot of more exposure compared to the time when Erik rode, where it was much smaller, but he won 7 times the world championship, so hard to compare.
Now, let's move on to our main talking point of this week's racing news show. The biggest rider transfers on the men's side of the sport and how they could play out in 2020. And we're going to start with the general classification riders, because there have been quite a few high-profile moves in that regard. And we'll start with Richard Carapaz. The Ecuadorian won the Giro d'Italia back in May, but before he'd even sealed the deal on that one, it was reported that he'd sealed a deal with Team Ineos. Cue lots of groans and moaning that yet another GC heavyweight will be on the British team next year. He will potentially be joined by Andre Amador as well, who'd signed a contract extension with Movistar, but now appears to be in some complicated wranglings to get out of it. It means that Ineos now have 4 Grand Tour winners in their ranks: Carapaz, Bernal, Thomas, and of course Chris Froome. Which makes you wonder how they're going to accommodate the goals and needs of their embarrassment of riches. Bernal, speaking to Spanish newspaper AS last week, said that he'll target the Giro Tour double next year. So where does that leave Carapaz? It's going to be very interesting to see the dynamic in that squad next year, a lot of which could rest on the recovery, or not as the case may be, of Chris Froome. If he gets back to his best, it's going to be a tough juggling act for the management there. Now, one former Team Sky rider also setting off for pastures new is Mikel Landa. He was, of course, at Movistar. Next year, he'll be at the team formerly known as Bahrain Merida. He will replace Vincenzo Nibali as their GC captain and has apparently already been told that he'll be their undisputed leader at the Tour de France. No more #Freelander needed then, which I know will please a lot of you. He is the rider that many people think could strike fear into the heart of Team Ineos because when he's on form, he really can cause havoc in the mountains, where he'll also be backed up by Wout Poels. Team Jumbo-Visma are also looking even stronger next year because added to Roglic, Kruijswijk and Bennett, they now have Tom Dumoulin. They really could be the thorn in the side of Team Ineos, couldn't they? They've come on leaps and bounds over the last few seasons, and not only do they have the GC leaders, they also have the climbing domestiques to back them up. That one is going to be really interesting next year. Lastly, on the GC side of things, Arkea Samsic have been incredibly busy in the transfer market, with their biggest signing being Nairo Quintana. Now that one did raise a few eyebrows, including mine. Fitting in the culture of a French squad can often be hard for a foreign rider, so that one could go either way. In fact, let's put this one out to you at home. Will this move make or break Quintana in 2020? You can find a link to a poll in our app underneath this video. Now, in terms of sprinters, the biggest move in that regard was Viviani, who, after a few very successful years at De Koning Quickstep, moves over to another French team, Cofidis. Again, this one raised a few eyebrows. Cofidis have been a second division team for some time now, and despite taking Fabio Sabatini with him, the biggest question surrounded how much support he'd receive in terms of his lead out. However, if you want my opinion, and I'm sure you don't, but I'm going to give it to you anyway, team manager Cedric Vasseur is somebody that I really believe can build this team into something great again. Viviani may not be quite as prolific as he has been for the last couple of years, but I think that team as a whole is one to watch in 2020. Likewise, we'll see whether Mark Cavendish rekindling his relationship with Rod Ellingworth will see him getting back to his winning ways at the team formerly known as Bahrain Merida. And finally, the biggest moves in terms of classics riders are Matteo Trentin, Philippe Gilbert and John Degenkolb. The former heads from Mitchelton Scott to CCC, which means that the Polish squad now have a two-pronged attack for the cobbles, with Trentin combining with Greg van Avermaet, who often finds himself alone in the finales of those races. If they work well together, they could pose the other team some big problems next season. Lotto Soudal, meanwhile, may have lost Tish Benoit, but coming back into the fold is Gilbert, along with former San Remo and Roubaix winner John Degenkolb. Now Gilbert, despite being 37 years of age, managed to bag himself a 3-year contract. To be fair though, he has proven this year that he's far from fading, winning Paris-Roubaix in a couple of stages of the Vuelta. If Degenkolb can also get back to his best, that is another team to be reckoned with in the Classics next year. So those are the biggest moves for next year according to us, and I don't know about you, but I cannot wait for the road season to start already. Let us know if we've missed any of the major moves out in the comments section below, and also who you think could be the biggest surprise in 2020. Before we move on, a quick look at what we've got coming up on GCN Racing this week. Starting on Saturday, where we've got the next round of the Ethias Cross. That is worldwide, excluding the US, Canada, Belgium and the Netherlands. And on Sunday, it is the next round of the Super Prestige Series in Zonhoven. That one is worldwide, excluding Belgium and the Netherlands. Both races will have live commentary from Marty, who will on Saturday be joined by Beth Crumpton, and on Sunday by Jeremy. Speaking of Jeremy, if you haven't caught his Cyclocross podcast yet, I can thoroughly recommend it. You'll find a link to that in the description below. Sticking with Cyclocross, there was some very good news last week for Wout Van Aert as he announced his return to competition. We will see him pin a number on again at Loenhout on the 27th of December, with his primary focus being on getting fit ready for the Classics next year. However he does there, it's going to be great to see him back, isn't it? In fact, there were two bits of good news for him last week, as he also won his legal battle with Nick Noyens, who'd sued him for €1.1 million after a very messy contract termination with the Verandas Willems Crayland team last year. Noyens was also ordered to pay Van Aert's legal costs. Happy Christmas, Wout. He was also a very busy man, in fact, because last week he was spotted riding the cobbles of Paris-Roubaix before unveiling the 2020 Jumbo-Visma jersey. What do you think of that one? Hot or not? Right, we've got a bit of a scoop now, again from Erwin Vervecken, because there's been a change to the circuit for the Namur round of the UCI Cyclocross World Cup.
There's a super nice cobblestone section, similar to what you have on the Koppenberg. Probably not as hard as the Koppenberg, but it's the same view, and we included it in the Namur World Cup. So it's just before the off-camera section that we go on the cobbles, and it's like a 350 meters uphill. First part's very steep, and then it's slowing down. So it's the hard part, which was in the course last year, will be in reverse direction. So they will go down on the hardest parts of last year, and then we have a new cobblestone section going up. But it's going to be amazing.
We will have more news on that after the official press conference and video, which is coming on the 12th of December. There was also some good news last week for the WNT women's team as it announced that Karatazit, apologies for the pronunciation, will join as title sponsor for 2020. Moving on, it's been rumoured that the fearsome Angliru climb will be back in the Vuelta next year for the first time since 2017. The route is not officially announced for a couple of weeks yet, but I'm sure many of us will look forward to those incredibly steep gradients, even if the riders may not. In other transfer news, Niels Pollitt has signed with the Israel Katusha squad, as we will call it at the moment. The German was runner-up to Philippe Gilbert in Paris-Roubaix this year, when he was out-sprinted by the Belgian in the Velodrome. Youngster from Great Britain, Ethan Hayter, signed for Team Ineos. This year he took stage wins in both the Baby Giro and the Tour de l'Avenir, although his primary goals next year will be on the track as he prepares for the Tokyo Olympics. And finally, the news you've all been waiting for. It seems that 48-year-old Davide Rebelli might not have to retire after all. Last week he was left without a contract after his e-Powers factory team folded, but according to Spazio Ciclismo in Italy, he's been offered a lifeline by the Cambodian cycling team. They'll be continental next year, so thank goodness for that. Right, before I go, just a quick reminder that you have until midnight GMT on Wednesday to take advantage of our special Black Friday prices. That's on a range of products, including, for example, this hoodie. Also over at the GCN shop, you'll find our Assos training kit at a special sale price at the moment. You should be able to see a link to the shop on the screen right now. Don't forget to subscribe to GCN Racing and also hit that bell icon so that you're notified of our live races or when we upload something new. Your support at the moment is very much appreciated. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you all have a great week. I'm going to leave you with Ollie, who is, rather bravely, attempted to break Eddie Merckx's hour record. Good luck with that one, Ollie. You can find out what that is all about by clicking just down here.